Right then guys, it's PSL here for the 12th episode in my Formula 1 2003 Reverse Grid Race series. And we're here for the German Grand Prix at the Hockenheimring. Now, as you can see, Justin Wilson will be starting this Grand Prix from pole position. However, Justin Wilson didn't qualify on pole position for the real life Grand Prix, that goes without saying. But he didn't qualify in last either. Justin Wilson qualified for the real-life 2003 German Grand Prix in 16th. Now that's because we've got to the point in the real-life season where there were driver changes. It was all started off by Jaguar. Jaguar decided they wanted to drop Pitsonia. Obviously, the performance of the drivers in this series has no bearing on whether they were dropped in real life. But Jaguar, they dropped Pitsonia on the basis that he was underperforming. And I have to say, in this series, he hasn't really done an amazing job. Looking at the Drivers' Championship, Mark Webber has got 8 points. Pitsonia has got 3. Now, I guess there's two ways of looking at it. The first one being that there's only a 5-point gap between the two drivers. However, another way of looking at it is that Mark Webber has got just under triple the points of his teammate. However, even that is a short-sighted way of looking at it, because by that logic, Frentzen has had an even worse season, because Heidfeld has got 9 points, his Sauber teammate Frentzen has got 2 points. Regardless anyway, it doesn't really matter. Pitsonia was dropped by Jaguar in favour of Justin Wilson. So as you can see, Pitsonia starting from 5th. That in real life was Justin Wilson. It was Justin Wilson's qualifying performance that determines where Pitsonia is starting for this race. And the same can be said for Justin Wilson, because of course Justin Wilson left Minardi to go to Jaguar, so his vacant seat was filled by the Dane Nicholas Kieser. In Reverse Grid series gone by, I would have enforced driver changes. Well, I did in the F1 Championship Edition series. I still get comments, not often, but once a blue moon, I will get a comment on one of my Championship Edition Reverse Grid videos saying, why are you calling Ide Montagny? Why are you calling Montoya Della Rosa? Why are you calling Villeneuve Kubica? And, well, I don't really want to get into a debate about it, but I would say that if you, as a viewer, click on the 8th episode of a series and don't understand certain things, well, that's your own fault for clicking on the 8th episode of an ongoing series. Regardless, I will concede that it was a confusing way of doing it. So, I mean, I guess there is no real easy way around it. There is always going to be a confusing element, because there's two approaches. There's either me talking about the driver changes as if they've happened in the game, but then of course there's a disconnect between the name you're seeing on screen and the name I'm saying. And that's confusing. However, there is the way I'm going to do now, which is not enforce driver changes. And I guess from a viewer perspective, certainly from a casual viewer perspective, that's much simpler. I just look at the qualifying results and then work out what they mean in the context of this game and just roll with it. Of course, it does mean that if you look at the qualifying results, it will be a bit confusing because it won't really match up to the video, but it's less confusing. So long and short of it, I will not be doing driver changes in this series. Justin Wilson will always be driving a Minardi, and Pitsonia is going to see out the rest of the season in a Jaguar. Jenson Button for the second Grand Prix in a row qualified poorly, but unlike at the British Grand Prix, he can't blame a car failure. Well, at least I don't think so, because whereas the British Grand Prix qualifying session is freely available on YouTube, the German Grand Prix qualifying session isn't, so I don't really know the ins and outs of the qualifying session, but long and short of it, I think it's safe to say that Jenson Button didn't perform at his best. Behind him, once you reverse the grids behind him, but of course these are drivers who qualified ahead of him for the real life qualifying session. You've got Pitsonia, well, that was Justin Wilson, but we've already gone over that. Heidfeld, Frentzen, Jacques Villeneuve 4 places further up than his teammate, which sounds good. It sounds better if I say this though. Jacques Villeneuve beat his teammate in qualifying by 1 second. A whole second. So Jenson Button's qualifying performance really wasn't good. Behind Jacques Villeneuve, once you reverse the starting grids behind him, you've got Giancarlo Fisichella in a Jordan. Fantastic qualifying performance. Mark Webber, David Coulthard, yet again, I've said this many times before, David Coulthard had a subpar qualifying session. Then you've got the 2 Toyotas with Fernando Alonso in the middle. Michael Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen, Jarno Trulli, Rubens Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya. Fun fact, this was the last Grand Prix until the 2014 Austrian Grand Prix, 11 years later, where both Williams drivers locked out the front row of the grid. Sounds impressive, and it was, but it offers no advantage in this reverse grid series. In fact, it's actually a big disadvantage, but there's a lot of laps to this 2003 reverse grid German Grand Prix, and we're at the Hockenheimring, so there's plenty of overtaking opportunities. So, let's find out what's going to happen in the 2003 reverse grid German Grand Prix.
It's a tricky start always here at Hockenheim, and the German crowd is on the edge of its seats as the lights go on. 5 sets of lights any moment now, and it's go! Everybody away and rushing down towards that right-hander. Huge crowd, huge roar. We're racing at Hockenheim.
Thank you, James Allen, and I was about to say, unlike in the real-life Grand Prix, there wasn't a huge crash, but there so nearly was. Lots of cars weaving around all over the place, but we've still got a Minardi 1-2. It's still Justin Wilson leading from Jos Verstappen, Jenson Button in third, then Heidfeld, Ralf Furman, Jacques Villeneuve in the mix, and he's looking to make a move down the inside, heading towards this incredibly tight hairpin. What a move from Jacques Villeneuve! He's passed his teammate and a lot of other drivers besides. Let's have a look at that on the replay. On board, Jacques Villeneuve, the highest placed driver to actually move to the inside line, which is incredibly wise. So he passed Ralf Furman on the power, that's why I said Villeneuve was in 6th, and then outbroke, well, everyone, but notably Heidfeld and Jenson Button. And Button, yeah, instantly lost ground to his teammate. So let's have a look actually on board from Jenson Button. I was going to say look at the wing mirrors, but this is a 2003 PS2 game, so there's not really much to see. But there's Jacques Villeneuve. Jenson Button would have seen that in his wing mirrors. Jacques Villeneuve approaching rapidly. So we've got Jacques Villeneuve in third, Jenson Button in fourth. Michael Schumacher at his home Grand Prix has dropped down to last. So, it's still Wilson, Verstappen, Villeneuve, Button, both BAR drivers, yet again, impressing me. The entire second half of the season, BAR have really turned up the wick on their season, on their performance. BAR in the first half of the season, what were their notable performances? Button scored a couple of points, 1 point maybe, in the Australian Grand Prix, and that's it. I can't even think of anything else they did. The second half of the season, well, they've been scrapping for podiums, race wins. They have been deeply impressive. Right now, it is Jacques Villeneuve ahead of Jenson Button. And would you believe this? I mean, this is actually extraordinary. Justin Wilson still leading the Grand Prix, pulling away from Jos Verstappen. But we have got a Constructors' Championship battle for 5th between Minardi and BAR. On track, we've got a battle between Minardi and BAR. There's Jacques Villeneuve going up the inside of Jos Verstappen, and he's done it, as has Jenson Button. Both BAR drivers are in podium places. Villeneuve in 2nd, Button in 3rd.
We're watching Verstappen.
We have got a McLaren driver in the points places. Kimi Raikkonen in 8th place, soon to be 7th as he passes Cristiano de Mata. Verstappen dropping back to 6th place. So that means Mark Webber has passed him, so has Nick Heidfeld. And that's a move being made by Jacques Villeneuve on Justin Wilson. Jacques Villeneuve leading the 2003 reverse grid German Grand Prix. Justin Wilson still in 2nd for the time being, but he's got Jenson Button behind him. He's got Nick Heidfeld there in 4th. Wilson very quickly, very easily could drop back to 4th place. But then you've got Mark Webber. He's certainly capable of passing a Minardi driver, as is Kimi Raikkonen, who's up in 6th. Then it's Verstappen. Then it's Rubens Barrichello in 8th. Rubens Barrichello, the premier Ferrari driver in this Grand Prix, because you've got De Mata, Frentzen, Furman, all of those drivers. Then Michael Schumacher, who is down in 12th. Okay, there has been some movement from the Williams drivers, bearing in mind that they did start on the back row of the grid. David Coulthard has scored points in every single Grand Prix so far this season, apart from the Monaco Grand Prix. He's down in 17th, and it will be big news if David Coulthard doesn't score points this Grand Prix. It's all changed out of the front as we've got Jenson Button. You can see him there in 3rd place. We're watching a replay, and as you can predict, Jenson Button down the inside, cautious actually. Justin Wilson left the space. If Justin Wilson closed the door, I don't think Jenson Button would have made the move, and Justin Wilson would still have been in 2nd. Now he's in 4th. Heidfeld again capitalising on the open door that Justin Wilson left. So you've got Justin Wilson down in 4th, Michael Schumacher still in 12th place, soon to be 11th as he passes Ralph Furman. So we've got the podium places occupied by 2 BAR drivers, Jacques Villeneuve leading Jenson Button, and then Nick Heidfeld. Now this is actually fantastic for Sauber. Sauber, they are currently in a championship battle, Constructors' Championship battle with Jordan and Jaguar. Jordan are on 12 points, both Sauber and Jaguar are on 11 points. Any points scored by any of those teams is big news. So Nick Heidfeld for Sauber in a podium place could drastically improve Sauber's Constructors' Championship position.
Minardi's Justin Wilson really doesn't want to be passed by Webber.
Well, never mind just Webber, you've also got Barrichello, you've also got Kimi Raikkonen, who have both passed Justin Wilson. So Wilson is down into 6th place. Barrichello in 4th, Kimi Raikkonen in 5th. For the time being, I am sure Justin Wilson would still rather be in a Minardi. But with Mark Webber all over the back of him, I'm sure it won't be too long before Justin Wilson wishes he was in a Jaguar in this series.
Rubens Barrichello looks like he will improve on his current time. He's gone faster than before through sector 1.
He moves left, then right. Yes! Great driving!
I would hardly say great, that was bordering on clumsy, but it did work. Michael Schumacher making up 2 places there, passing Mark Webber and Justin Wilson. So, Michael Schumacher, yes, he is still behind his teammate, but as it stands, it is damage limitation for Michael Schumacher, and I have to say, he is doing a fantastic job as limiting the damage, because let's not forget, Rubens Barrichello is tied on points with Michael Schumacher in the Drivers' Championship. So, Michael Schumacher losing out in this Grand Prix to Rubens Barrichello, for the time being at least, is big news.
Over the back of him like a rash, trying to find the right time to overtake.
Ferrari's Rubens Barrichello has to be careful if he doesn't want to get passed by Raikkonen. Heidfeld really doesn't want to be passed by Kimi Raikkonen. Nick Heidfeld has lost out and is now behind Raikkonen.
He's up alongside. Yes, great driving.
Well, I mean, come on, it was hardly the move of the century, was it, Martin? But either way, Michael Schumacher up into 5th place. Rubens Barrichello, I saw him there briefly try and make a move on Jenson Button, but not yet. However, Barrichello is going to want to make that move soon because there's Michael just off in the background there.
It looks as though he's lining up to try and make a pass. Jenson Button did everything he could to try and keep back Rubens Barrichello.
This is Raikkonen.
Raikkonen is fighting for position with Jenson Button.
He's right on his gearbox.
Button really doesn't want to be passed by Raikkonen. BAR's Jenson Button has lost out and is now behind Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah, he's also going to be behind Michael Schumacher in just a matter of seconds. In fact, it's already happened. Jenson Button, he's done brilliantly well in the previous Grand Prix, battling the top drivers, setting some really top tier pace, but this Grand Prix, less so. Even still, Jenson Button, he is still in 5th. Apart from his teammate and drivers in the top 3 teams, Jenson Button is the quickest guy out there. Fisichella retired, that's very recent because I checked. Because I know in the past few Grand Prix recently I've kept missing drivers who have retired, so I checked a lap ago to see if anyone had retired. No one had, so that is a very recent retirement for Fisichella. There it is. That is yet another engine failure for Jordan, but actually I think that might be the first one for Fisichella. And he's just disappeared. That's brilliant. But normally when Jordan have an engine failure, it's Ralph Furman. Furman has been one of the unluckiest drivers this season, but Fisichella, it was his turn to get a bit of bad luck. There's the Ford engine going up in smoke, but Fisichella, I don't think he was battling for much at this point, but even still, it's not exactly an ideal way to end a Grand Prix.
This is Barrichello.
Barrichello is doing his best to move up a place by getting past Jacques Villeneuve. And the two cars touch! A definite coming together there with the Ferrari.
Definitely far too ambitious to try that move, and it was inevitable there was going to be contact. Hopefully there's no serious damage to either car.
This is strange actually. In the previous Grand Prix, but also in this one, we're hearing some new commentary lines. Martin Brundle talking about the aggressiveness of the move. But I'm being honest, that move was the same as all the other moves, if not actually slightly cleaner than some of the other moves, but there has been a lot of contact down at the hairpin. Even still, Rubens Barrichello is leading the 2003 German Grand Prix. Jacques Villeneuve in 2nd, Kimi Raikkonen still in 3rd place, but Michael has certainly tried to get past. Jenson Button in 5th, Nick Heidfeld in 6th. A quick update on the battle for the positions below 6th, because most of the attention so far has been for the battles between 1st and 6th places. Justin Wilson, nowhere to be seen. Mark Webber is now the driver in 7th place, Jarno Trulli in 8th.
And it looks to be an engine failure for the Sauber Petronas.
Yes, it's race over for Sauber's Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Again, brilliant commentary. I love the commentary in older F1 games, it's fantastic. But there's Frentzen out with an engine failure. Now that doesn't... Hang on. So it's Barrichello, right. I thought I would have missed something, and unfortunately, yeah, we really did miss it. But there's Michael Schumacher getting past Jacques Villeneuve, Raikkonen up in 2nd. So the top 3 now is Barrichello, Raikkonen, then Michael Schumacher. We missed out on the battle between Raikkonen, Schumacher and Villeneuve, but I'm sure we all know what happened. We've seen so many overtakes happen down at the hairpin that I'm sure we can all imagine what happened. Even still, Raikkonen 2nd, Michael Schumacher now in 3rd place, Villeneuve in 4th, but still going strong for BAR.
And there's smoke coming from the back of his car. That surely is the end of his race.
There's smoke all over the place. Now this could be dangerous for the other drivers. He needs to try and find a safe spot on the side of the track.
Mark Webber wasn't the only driver to have retired just then. Michael Schumacher is out with an engine failure, complete engine failure, smoke billowing from the car, and that is Michael Schumacher out of his home Grand Prix. There he is in the garage. Michael Schumacher, wow, that is extraordinary. A driver who has been known to be so incredibly lucky with reliability, and that is a catastrophic engine failure. Not another fastest lap. I'm slightly surprised actually, because Barrichello has beaten the fastest lap this Grand Prix about 5 times at least. Anyway, Barrichello still leading the Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen is still in second, but he hasn't got to worry about Michael Schumacher anymore. Jacques Villeneuve is back up into a podium place. Jenson Button in 4th, Heidfeld 5th, Jarno Trulli up to 6th. He's gained 2 places through retirement, 1 on Mark Webber and 1 on Michael Schumacher. So Jarno Trulli, who was occupying the final points place, is now in 6th. That means Juan Pablo Montoya, the Williams driver, is up into a points place, as is Cristiano de Mata, but I think Ralf Schumacher very, very soon, in fact now, is going to enter the final points place.
Coulthard has to be careful if he doesn't want to get passed by.
Well, would you look at that? David Coulthard is quicker than Ralf Schumacher. David Coulthard could still yet score a point in this Grand Prix.
We've had some fantastic weather in the week leading up to the race, and there's no sign of it changing anytime.
So we are on the final lap of the Grand Prix. As you saw there, Kimi Raikkonen still in second, but he's been a few tenths of a second a lap slower than Rubens Barrichello. Raikkonen still in second, Villeneuve, Button, Heidfeld, Trulli coming down on Nick Heidfeld. We could see a last lap overtake, but is it going to happen? Oh, Jarno Trulli going to make the move and contact, but he hasn't made it stick. Anyway, Rubens Barrichello rounding the final corner to win the 2003 German Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen, he actually finished this Grand Prix. He's retired from the previous 2. We didn't even get to see those retirements, but Kimi Raikkonen has finished in second. Jacques Villeneuve, lucky, but also he has had a fantastic drive. He has finished this Grand Prix in 3rd, and yes, he got it through luck, but he also definitely deserves it. Jenson Button, certainly the second BAR driver, but he did still finish in 4th. Great drive for Jenson Button. Then it's Heidfeld in 5th, Jarno Trulli 6th, Montoya in 7th, and Ralf Schumacher was able to keep back David Coulthard. David Coulthard, well, this is something. We have done 12 Grand Prix so far this season. This is only the 2nd Grand Prix in which David Coulthard hasn't scored points. The only other Grand Prix this season was the Monaco Grand Prix. So David Coulthard didn't score a point at this Grand Prix, and unlike Michael Schumacher, unlike Mark Webber, unlike a lot of other drivers, he can't even blame a reliability issue. That's the thing. Coulthard was helped out a lot. There were a lot of drivers who retired from this Grand Prix, yet he still didn't score a point. Just take a look at these Drivers' Championship standings. You've got Rubens Barrichello leading the way on 68 points, 10 ahead of his teammate. They both entered this Grand Prix on the same points count. Now, Rubens Barrichello, he's got a comfortable margin. David Coulthard, he's still in 3rd place, but surprisingly, he is still on 54 points. Montoya has closed the gap, so has his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, so has Jarno Trulli technically, although Trulli's in a different league. Montoya is on 48 points, Kimi Raikkonen is on 48 points. There are 4 Grand Prix left to go this season. They are both 20 points back from the championship leader Rubens Barrichello. So they are still certainly mathematically in with a shout of winning this Drivers' Championship, but Montoya and Kimi Raikkonen, they would need a really good run of form to to really be able to mount a charge for the Drivers' Championship. Although Kimi Räikkönen, he did fantastically well this Grand Prix. Montoya recently, I just feel like his form has dipped. I think he was doing better at the start of the season, but considering Montoya started from the back row of the grid and still scored 2 points this Grand Prix, he did very, very well. Jarno Trulli is no longer tied on points with his teammate as he's now got 30 points. 3 more than Fernando Alonso, but Alonso is still tied on points with someone else as Jenson Button has got 27 points. Jenson Button, the BAR driver, is tied on points with a Renault driver. Now I know I keep talking about the top 3 teams, Ferrari, Williams and McLaren, but Renault are in a league of their own. Renault are the definite 4th quickest team. So for anyone to be on the par with a Renault driver is quite a feat. And Jenson Button on 27 points, 9 ahead of the Williams driver of Ralf Schumacher. The only other driver to have scored points was Jacques Villeneuve, who's now on 20 points, passing Jos Verstappen and Ralf Schumacher. Ferrari have, albeit only slightly, enlarged their lead in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari now have 126 points. McLaren, courtesy not of David Coulthard but of Kimi Räikkönen, are now on a triple figure points total. Williams, Renault and BAR all scored points. There's been no positional changes amongst those teams, but I think it's time for us to change our outlook, because I was previously talking about a Constructors' Championship battle between Minardi and BAR. Well, that's dead. That is completely dead in the water. BAR are only 10 points back from Renault. Renault are only 8 points back from Williams. Certainly there could be positional changes amongst those 3 teams, and possibly, although I think this is a stretch, it could still be a 3-way battle for 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. Sauber have overtaken Jordan in the Constructors' Championship. Yes, Nick Heidfeld, thanks to him scoring 4 points, finishing 5th in this Grand Prix, he has overtaken Jordan. Well, when I say he, I do mean the team has, but when you look at the number of points Nick Heidfeld has scored compared to the number of points Heinz-Harald Frentzen has scored, certainly most of the point scoring legwork has been done by Heidfeld, and actually, even if you remove Heinz-Harald Frentzen's points, Nick Heidfeld alone has scored more points than Jordan, so it really is Nick Heidfeld. And actually, this episode has pretty much come full circle on itself, because at the start of this episode I was talking about it being unfair to judge Heinz-Harald Frentzen versus Nick Heidfeld based purely on the points gap. However, as a result of this Grand Prix, I do think Heinz-Harald Frentzen has had a worse season than Pitsonia. And anyway, now on to the next Grand Prix. Well, that will be in the next episode, but the next Grand Prix will be held at the Hockenheimring in Hungary. And I'll see you guys in the next episode, in which we will be watching that very Grand Prix. So I'll see you guys then.